Gundam.tk presents Gundam Astray, Red Frame. Hey, how you doing everybody? It's Robert184 from Gundam.tk. Welcome to part 3 of my review of the Master Grade, Red Frame Gundam Astray. And don't forget to check out part 1 for the deboxing and part 2 as I look in depth at all the parts. And stay tuned for part 4 where I'll be taking a look at the tactical arms. But now let's see this all put together. If you take a look at the top of the hip here, you'll see that there's a cavity there, and you're just going to take the waist section and just plug this in, no problems like that. You are going to want to be careful that when you're putting in the legs that you get them all the way in, because otherwise you're going to notice that one is higher or lower than the other, and that they're feeling a little bit loose, so they shouldn't be, so check it again. Next up, you can just take the shoulder and plug the arm into it, and then you'll just pop this onto the chest for this kind of result. The waist attachment just has a huge ball joint there. And when it's all put together, and here you have it. Master Grade Gundam Astray Red Frame. I have to say that my first impressions are overall very positive, and I think that they did a really good job with the color scheme of this Gundam in general. Because when you build the legs, all of a sudden, when you're building them, you just see the red inner frame, and then you slap a few white parts on it all of a sudden, and it seems like all the red has disappeared, but there's just enough in the foot and the lower legs to look good. While in the chest, I worried that there was going to be too much gray, but that really gets offset by the red and the white everywhere else. And I think for me, the coolest part is, as you can see at the back, in the shoulders, just the fact that you can see that much of the red frame itself just sort of seems to go along well with the theme of this series. And here is a zoomed-in shot of the upper body. You really notice how detached the backpack seems as he spins around. So why do people buy the Master Grade, or why would you buy the Master Grade Red Frame? Well, I can think of 3 main reasons. One is because it has cool shiny swords, which is really simple. The second is for the tactical arms, which you're either going to be a fan of or not, and I'll find out as soon as I build that up. But I think the third one is for the posability. And the whole idea of this manga is that it's very cool, stylized, etc. And just the fact that he has old-style metal blades just sort of speaks to that. But he can pull off pretty much any pose, and let's see. So the legs, no problem bringing them around at all. The ankles can give you a bend like that, so he could stand on his toes like that. As far as going off to the side, you're able to bring the legs up this much, no problem at all. As for the upper body, you've already seen that the waist can bend here. It's got a ball joint here and here, so that can move. The arms, no problem going around, and they come up. No problems at all, bringing up almost the 180, and then they can come off to the sides as the shoulder will slide up. So really, no complaints anywhere about posability here. But what is the Red Frame without his signature sword? So anyway, you can just see that there's a small black part here on either side, and that is the mount mechanism that you're going to take the Gerbera straight and the Tiger Pierce and just stick it in like that. It's also cool too that once you've mounted it on the side, you do have a fair bit of mobility in almost every direction. Now with how much I've read of the manga, which is just the first 3 volumes, he only had one sword, so I just started him off with this, and then I'll throw in the other one when I show you the tactical arms. But here he is, the classic Red Frame, not too dissimilar from what you'd be getting if you bought the 1/100th kit, except it doesn't come with the blaster and the shield and the backpack with the 2 beam sabers. And here's a shot at distance to show you an idea of the length of the sword, which is almost as long as the Gundam itself. For size comparisons, the Red Frame is a little bit smaller than a regular Gundam, coming in at 17.5 meters. So this being 1/100th, you can guess that means 17.5 centimeters. And here it is next to the EZ-8, whose review you can also check out. As for its newer brother with shiny swords, here it is next to the Gundam Exia Master Grade. And you can see that the Exia is quite a bit bigger than the Red Frame here. To see him next to somebody who will make him look tiny, here he is next to Master Grade Double Zeta. And you really get an idea here of the bulk of the Double Zeta in comparison. And finally, here he is next to his brother from the Gundam Seed universe, Master Grade Freedom. And here you don't really notice the size differences, and the proportions are pretty similar if you took out the wings and Freedom's oversized shoulders. And actually, I did want to take a look at these two Gundams together because they are from the Seed universe. You can sort of picture that this is the RX-78-2, and then this is sort of a high-powered gym that gets its own spin-off manga. Because in effect, Astray turned into a grunt suit, or the basis of it, for the Orb Union. But I think overall that they did a pretty good job of keeping the design similar while still making the Astray frames that much unique, which I think translates really well into the manga style. So the fact that it is thin, skinny, and sort of has that muscular physique, which seems a little bit strange to be saying about a robot, but they seem to try to have incorporated that into the design, along with the fact that it has simple weapons like just a small blaster and the swords, I think actually lends itself as a pretty good offsetting match to the Freedom and its just overpowering awesomeness. Now, something that's really cool and very important for the kind of poses you can do is that you can take the scabbard off of the waist and put it into the hand, and because it has a clip on the palm, like all good Gundams should, it does that. But look what happens. Yes, you can see that this sword is going to be a little bit heavy as it slowly falls. Just a second ago it fell pretty quickly. And ever since they announced the Master Grade Red Frame Kai, well, forget about the Kai part, I just wanted a Master Grade Red Frame just so it could do cool poses like this. And I really think that this shows off the silver in the blade, which sort of makes up for the fact that they didn't chrome the rest of the parts on the hilt of the sword itself. Something worth noting here, I don't know if you can see the slice there, but the peg on the palm of the hand, you're actually able to slide the sword up and down a little bit, so it has a little bit of mobility that you can do while still keeping it firmly in there, so you're not going to have to resort to anything like sticky tack, it seems. Also, with the mobility in the ankles, and I hope they don't become too loose, like I said, like Master Grade Exia, really, you're hardly limited in what you can do with this, as you'll see when he comes slowly around on the turntable. So this is just sort of a really quick final thought on what I'm going to call just the red frame before we get into the Kai business and the tactical arms too, etc. And I have to say, if I bought this kit just like this, I would be happy with it in pretty much every way. I've had no problems with posability, loose joints, etc. if you make sure everything's put together. I think that I only have one complaint, and you probably already heard me say it about 3 times. But when this guy comes around, you're going to see that the sword is shiny and cool. And if the sword is out, that's where your eyes go, and it's going to be a cool-looking package. But the only problem is that half the poses that I want to do involve just having the sword in the scabbard. And the fact that it has that really poor gold at the ends of the tips just make it look cheap. So I think that you're going to have to solve that by either putting on the tactical arms to sort of distract from it, paint it, or just keep the blade out, which is not a terrible thing. But overall, if I had just bought this and it was, let's say, 3,500 yen, I'd be really happy with it. So thanks again for watching, everybody. Hope you've enjoyed seeing this model as much as I enjoyed building it, because it's been great so far. And stay tuned for the next part for the tactical arms and to see how good is this as a 5,000 yen package. Anyway, everybody, Robert184, Gundam.tk, thanks as always. Throw some comments on my front page. I always love hearing from you. Take care. See you next time. Yeah, hey, I just wanted to say thank you for sending me into space. Hey, no problem. I always wondered how you got there until I read the manga. So anyway, everybody, please stay tuned for the next part. Yeah, bet.